Okay, this video is going to cover multiplication and division of integers. This is much easier than addition and subtraction of integers. The rule's very simple. You multiply or divide as normal. Then, if the signs are the same, the answer is positive. If the signs are different, the answer is negative. So, for example, if I took something like this, 3, and I did, remember parentheses means multiplication, 3 times 6, you know that's 18. It's a positive 18 because both the 3 and the 6 are positive. So, if I did this, negative 3 times a positive 6, this is equal to a negative 18 because the signs are different. One of them is positive, one is negative. If I did this, negative 3 times negative 6, this is also a positive 18 because the signs are the same. They're both negative. Your answer ends up being positive. And then here, if I did this, this is also a negative 18. That's nice. Okay, moving on. Let's try some samples, shall we? Okay. So, multiply like normal. 9 times 11 is 99. The signs are different, so the answer is negative. Here I have 24 divided by 3, which is 8. The signs are different. The answer is negative. 0 times 100 is 0. Now this is a very interesting case because 0 is neither positive or negative. So even though the signs are different, do not do this. No, 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 no. The answer is just 0. 35 divided by 7 is 5. They're both negative, so the same. The answer is positive. Notice I'm not writing a positive out in front. You don't have to do that. If you want to do this, you can, but it's unnecessary. If we just see a number like that, we assume that it's positive. All right. For these, I want you to try to do these yourself. Now notice that the one on the end, the 24 over 6, is a fraction. Fraction means division. You can kind of think of it like this. Here, the division symbol looks like a fraction, right? Except there's a number over a number. So when you see a fraction, just remember it is division. So pause the video and try these on your own, then play it and see if you got it correct. Okay, first one, 6 times 8 is 48. They're both negative, both same, so the answer is positive. 0 divided by 25, negative 25, is 0. Now, remember that if it was the other way around, you were dividing by 0, your answer would be undefined. You can't divide by 0. But 0 divided by anything else is always 0. 4 times 8 is 32. They're both negative, so your answer is positive. Signs are the same, answer is positive. 24 divided by 6 is 4. The signs are different, the answer is negative. All right, let's try something just a wee bit different. We're going to cover exponents for a minute because last year you had exponents, but you didn't have them with negative numbers. So that's something that we need to cover. This first one, just a reminder of how to do exponents. This number inside the parentheses here, or the big number, is your base. And then you have your exponent, your power, on the outside. That tells you how many times to write your base for the repeated multiplication. So this, because this negative 4 has parentheses around it, and the squared is on the outside of the second power, that means that the number inside the parentheses is what gets multiplied by itself. That means it includes the sign. Very important. Negative 4 then times negative 4 is a positive 16. Now, very common student mistake is thinking that you just take that 2 times that 4 and it's 8. That is not the case. Don't make that mistake. That's a repeated multiplication. Tells you to take whatever's in those parentheses, multiply it by itself. And then this tells you, the exponent tells you how many times to write it. Now, this is completely different from the next one, although they look alike. It is different. Do you understand how or why it's different? Can you see it? Hopefully, you see this right here is not in parentheses, which means that that exponent does not apply to the negative. That tells you to do this, essentially. You're going to do 4 times 4 and then put the negative on it. So this would actually be a negative 16. Be careful because it is a completely different thing. If the negative sign is in the parentheses and the exponent's on the outside, that means you include the negative. If it's just written like that, then you do not. Here's another sample. This one is to the third power. This would be then negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 gives you a positive 4. And then that would be multiplied by that last negative 2, which would give you a negative 8. Here's something that's kind of interesting. The number on the inside, if the number on the inside is negative, in other words, you're going to multiply it a negative times a negative times a negative however many times, and the exponent, or on the outside, is odd, then your answer will be negative. If it's even, your answer will be positive. So, for example, here I multiplied negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. I did it 3 times. It was odd, and the answer is negative. If I had something like this, negative 1, and I raise it to the 33rd power, well, you know that 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times, no matter how many times you do it, it's still going to be 1. But you wouldn't have to multiply it out because you would say, oh, well, the exponent's odd. That means the answer is negative. If it was negative 1, it was to the 102nd. It's still going to be 1. But then your answer is going to be positive because it's an even exponent. That's just something useful to know. Moving on! Here, evaluate each expression when A is equal to negative 3, B is equal to 2, C is equal to negative 10. Now, there's nothing written here, so I'll write something. I'm going to do A squared B. First thing you want to do is you want to substitute. In other words, take the values that are up here and put them in for the variables. Now you got to be careful because this is saying A is negative 3, and when you square it, you're actually going to include that because it's A. I want you to square everything or whatever A is, and A happens to be negative. Then times B, which is just 2. Negative 3 times negative 3 gives me 9 times a positive 2, and this turns out to be 18. What if I did this? This is going to be very tricky. Be careful. Negative B and then times C. This again is tricky. It's tricky, tricky, tricky. Why is it tricky? Hopefully, you say because of this right here. Because that's what makes it tricky. That is telling you the opposite of A. Because if I put it in, I would put it in like this. Negative, and then A is a negative 3. That double negative makes this a positive 3, which is the opposite of that. So when you write it, you could choose to write it like this and then change it, or you could just say, well, that means the opposite of A, and I see up here A is negative 3, so that means it actually becomes a positive. Same thing with B. The opposite of B, B is 2, so it would be a negative 2. And then C is just a negative 10. Now I'm going to put parentheses so it doesn't look like I'm subtracting 10. A positive 3 times a negative 2 gives me a negative 6 times a negative 10. Negative 6 times negative 10 gives me a positive 60. Okay? Be careful with those because those can be tricky. That is all, my friends. Have a good day. Goodbye.